I am going to Manali for the first time in my life, and I go there and I find a property and I sign an agreement with the landlord. And this is all happening where like my parents hadn't even met the people I was going to start a business with. So yeah, I think I was a big risk taker then. I realized कि नहीं, अगर कुछ life में करना है, तो you have to accept the imperfections of what you're doing. And if you're waiting कि जब एकदम सही हो जाएगा ना, मतलब एकदम solid हो जाएगा, and then I will throw it out in the market, it will never have, like, you will never put it out because you will never be satisfied. I did sign up for therapy and I worked with them for like 5 months only to realize that भाई मेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, नौकरी नहीं हो पाएगी. I am born to be a leader.
Born entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur भी नहीं यार, बोलना भी नहीं आता था वो तो तब.
We have all heard so many speakers for, this is the third day now, and I think one thing that was common in all the speakers, an engineering degree. And we thought that let's break that down, right? Let's understand startups, let's understand business, let's understand passion from a different point of view. And for that, I'm going to call up on stage my next guest for today, Stuti Ashok Gupta. Stuti, if I can have you on stage. And I'm really looking forward to this session because I'm hoping that this will be not the run-of-the-mill kind of a conversation that we had so far, right? कि engineering करो, MBA करो, पढ़ाई करो, कुछ ना कुछ तो बन ही जाओगे, right? So, Stuti, you were telling me that Bangalore is your second home, yeah? What's your first home?
So I come from Gwalior in Madhya Pradesh. I have done my schooling in Gwalior and I came to Bangalore for my graduation. So that's why Bangalore is like my second home. Like at any point when I don't know where to go, what to do, I come here. So
Where was this graduation? Where were you?
So I studied at Christ University. I did my psychology honors. So first 2 years I studied psychology, sociology and English literature. And then third year was my honors degree where I was doing majors in psychology.
So Stuti, tell me very honestly, in your class 11, class 12, what was it that you have taken? Did you take science? No.
Yes.
You did?
So, I mean, I have a very interesting story for that actually. I was a topper kid, but I was always like with all the bad boys of the class, and like, you know, my friends are always getting like 3 out of 100 in math and I was getting 100 out of 100. But one thing that I like, you know, never really enjoyed was like games period. I'm sorry if I disappoint some of you, but like I have been a trained Kathak dancer and I've been trained in Hindustani classical music. So those were more of my inclination. And when I came in 11th standard and there was only one option, like PCM plus physical education. And I was like, I'm definitely not doing this. This is something I can't bear, like being on the ground. So there was like a list of subjects that our school gave us. And there was psychology on it. I honestly did not know what they're going to teach us there. And we went to the principal and I said, you know, why don't you start this? If you've given us as an offer, I would like to sign up. And the principal said, you know, you need to at least convince 5 kids. And if you get 5 students to sign up for this subject, then I would like, you know, start the subject.
Start the subject.
Yeah. So that's how basically me and like a few of my friends, I convinced them. One of them is actually here. So I actually did physics, chemistry, math, and psychology in 11th and 12th.
Right. That seems like a very different kind of a mix than what we usually see. But were you aware of what psychology entails and why it's needed, and why did you want to learn that?
I'd be completely honest that when I signed up, when I wrote that I want psychology, like any layman, even I thought that I'd learn to read the mind, like how people come and tell me, oh, tell me what's going on in my mind, like, you've studied psychology. But that's not what it was. It was a lot deeper, and I think mental health, when I took up this subject, this was like in 2009, and I don't think anyone was talking about mental health at that time. So
Not in India, for sure.
yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not even generalizing to India. I'm just talking like in Gwalior, nobody knew how to say psychology right. When I started studying, when I met the teacher, like the school hired a new teacher, she influenced me a lot, like, and I was like, this is interesting. What is, how does she earn? How does she spend her day apart from teaching? What does her day look like? And I was really influenced by her. And even though, I had like I topped my 11th, 12th in science, and all my teachers expected me to, take an exam or like IIT, and I did not. I did not fill up a single form because I was like, I don't want to do that.
I did, but I did not appear for the exam. That's
Okay.
my
So
story.
there's something
Yeah.
in common.
So, tell me a little bit, you came to Bangalore. Psychology is something that you doubled down on. What did you tell your parents? How did you convince them that this is the route, this is the path that you're going to take?
So I think I was really lucky because my parents never asked me or expected me to do, anything that I did not want to do in terms of my education. Because, my father, he really valued education because he didn't get one the way that he wanted. He started on a very low level of a pharmaceutical company, and slowly he built up his life where he worked hard, he learned about Ayurveda, and then slowly he came to that MR level, marketing representative, and then he went to the distributor level. And eventually he became like the national distributor for a few prominent Ayurveda pharmaceuticals, which were based in Gwalior. So he really made up his way, and one thing that he learned was that the only way you can climb up the social ladder, especially when it comes to class, is with education. If you are studying, if you are, and not in the degree sense, but like actually knowing things, like actually having knowledge, actually learning different things. So both my brother and I, we were those kids, who would go to school, and then we would have, like I would have my Kathak tuition, and then I would have my Hindustani classical music tuition, and then I would learn Sanskrit. And I learned something so bizarre as typewriting, which has not helped me even one single day. But the idea for him was that, like, don't waste time. That was his only thing. So when I told him I wanted to study psychology, for him it was like, as long as, you're going to the right institute, it doesn't matter what you do eventually, but if you're studying something that you like, eventually you will make sense out of it. Gwalior till date doesn't have a, like a person we can tell that, okay, this is a good therapist you can go to.
Right.
It's still very virtual. There are only like maybe a handful of psychiatrists. So even mental health, even till date, is not something that people talk about, or they think of it as a good profession, right? So they were concerned for the right reasons, but I think my parents were like, okay, but if they are doing what they want to do, then they would figure out a way. They would pave their way, and I think that's what we did, because of the fact that when I came to Christ, and my like first day of my class, and like kids in my class were talking in English that I had not heard. I'm not kidding. I was noting down words, and I was like, I have not heard them. I would really have to go back and Google them. That's what, like, if I had to say, where are you? I'd have to like think thrice in my head before saying it, because even though I studied in an English medium school and I was a topper, when you come to a city like Bangalore and you go to an institute like Christ, and then you're like, okay, maybe I haven't learned anything till date. And that was the experience for me. And I think that way my parents were right, that if I go to an institute that's going to challenge me, then eventually it does not matter what course I take up and what subject I study, because I'm going to grow as a person, and then eventually that would make sense.
So, was it a natural course of action that you took up psychology masters as well, and this time from TISS, if I'm not wrong, right?
Right.
So when did that happen, and how did that change the course of your life?
So, so basically, I've been someone who have never had a plan B, like until that time, right? I was always that person who knew that, okay, I studied psychology, now I want to go to Christ, so I only filled one form and I got through, I went. Then I was like, okay, now what's my next course of action? Okay, Tata Institute is the best for Masters in Clinical Psychology. I filled up that form. And then I was in the waiting list, and that was my most significant rejection of my life at that time, because I always thought that, okay, if I'm going to pursue something, I'm going to work hard for it, and I'm going to get it. But I didn't, like Bombay. I still remember, like I can still feel how heartbroken I was, because that's, like we associate our goals with our identity too much. You know, like if this is not happening, then okay, you know, I'm really not good for anything. I worked so hard, now my life is useless, now my life is ended. When I thought that I didn't get through and I was like, okay, I don't know what to do, I signed up for this random internship in Delhi, and I went there. And I was working there, and like I had a convocation to come to in Bangalore. I reached college, I entered, and everyone was congratulating me. And everyone was saying, oh, congrats, you got through. And I was like, no, I didn't, no, I didn't. And then maybe like the fifth person I reached to, and this person had also gotten through, it is Calicut. And she showed me my name on the list, and I said, I did not even know that this college existed. And then, you know, I saw my name and I was like, okay, like, and once you're heartbroken and then you get something, you really don't know how to process it. So that's how I went about it. I went to Calicut and I entered the campus, and it was really not a campus. It was like this one big compound with two big Kerala houses together, and that was my college with just two courses, which was social work and mental health. And I think that was the best thing that happened to me. Like that was the best thing that I obviously could not foresee, because when I lived in Calicut, and there was really nothing to do there. Like it was, like it was a smaller place than Gwalior, you know, like. But this one time, I think in my first semester, when I bunked a class with my friend, who was also in Christ with me, and both of us stepped out, and we were like, okay, now what? Like, this is 3 p.m., like, what do we do? You know, do we go home and take a nap? Because there's really nothing to do. But that came out as an opportunity, because lack of something is always a sign of opportunity, right? So there was so much money saved at the end of the month, because the pocket money was still coming, but there was really nothing we could spend on. So we took our first trip to Kovalam, and then we realized that Calicut was that one place where we could, I mean, for those of you who have no idea where Calicut is, it's in North Kerala. And there was like a lot of places to travel from Calicut, like overnight buses and very well connected. So for 2 years, I just did that. I traveled so much. I think when I counted, it was more than 40 trips. I went to the north, I went to the west, I went, of course, everywhere in the south. And then I realized that, okay, I would have never, you know, had this opportunity to do this if I were selected in Bombay, like if I was living in TIS Bombay.
Was this the seed for the Lost Tribe hostels?
Yes, the Lost Tribe.
Hostel.
Yeah, the Lost Tribe.
I got it right, right?
Yes, yes, you did.
So was this the seed of it because you were traveling so intensively and you saw the world and you thought that there is a gap? Tell me a little bit about what exactly this is for the audience here, and how did the idea germinate?
So I feel like we are like I think of human beings as seed, right? And whatever you feed in, eventually that's what will grow. And I feel like, yes, all that traveling that I did back then, and I mean, it wasn't, at that time, it wasn't for social media. This is when I'm talking about in 2014.
So click करके Instagram पे डालना was not
नहीं
there.
नहीं नहीं मेरे पास photos नहीं है this is other trip की, to be honest. Like maybe I have just one picture of like one place that I've gone to, which is really bizarre, but like, and I had a good phone or whatever, but that was not the agenda. Like now I think it's become that. Like now people think about what they want to wear and where they want to click a picture, and it's okay, I don't judge them, but I feel like I feel like I was lucky, you know, that I did not have that kind of pressure. I could repeat my clothes if I wanted to. I could do whatever, you know, like no pressure there, because all I was doing was really exposing myself to different cultures and different places and different people. Coming to your question about the lost tribe. So actually, for me, at that time, I was working with an NGO, and I had started that when I was in my first year of Christ, and I was a volunteer. And by the time that I was in my master's, like 5 years later, I had become the national head of that NGO. It's called Gramiksha, and it works with children in government schools for quality of education. So for me, the idea was that, okay, maybe this is my path next. So I had actually applied to 3 universities, University of Edinburgh, King's London, and Leeds. I got through all 3. I was awarded a scholarship as well from my dream university, and I thought, okay, I'm set. You know, like life looks good now.
Right.
You know, because this time I had gotten through, so I was like, what's stopping me now? I have a scholarship as well. But I guess, I don't know, I think that happens with everyone, but maybe I have just taken rejections as a sign, always. Like, always I have, if I'm not getting something, that I think of it as, maybe because it's not meant for me, maybe there is something else I'm not able to identify because I'm too clouded by the social definitions and social expectations and pressure, of course. So yeah, that was my plan, and I was traveling just to travel at that time, and I see that, okay, I've always been passionate about community, so in NGO also I was doing that, and later I went ahead and did that with Lost Tribe, and now I'm doing that with Amrutam. But essentially, the core idea was that, okay, I'm going to go. And then when my parents had a financial setback, my father faced a huge loss, and they asked me to not go. And this is probably the first time they would have said no, like, like that. When they said no, and I was like, okay, like now my life has ended, like the second time, is when I told them, listen, I have this scholarship. This is the money that I would have gotten. Give me like a very small portion of it, and I'm going to start a community.
Right.
Like, because in psychology, there is a concept called therapeutic community, where people live together, and that itself acts as a tool for healing. Yeah, I mean, that was majorly the idea. And then, of course, coming from a business family background, I had to throw in like a revenue model to this community. Okay, how are you going to make money? So then I had met a bunch of people while I was traveling, and that's where the thing comes in. Where I had met a few people, and then I decided that, okay, they were already running a hostel in Goa, and I thought, okay, maybe I could combine the concept of community with the hostel, and I started a backpacker hostel in Manali. And this was all like, I am going to Manali for the first time in my life, and I go there, and I find a property, and I sign an agreement with the landlord, and this is all happening where, like, my parents hadn't even met the people I was going to start a business with. So yeah, I think I was a big risk taker then.
Superb. And how do you understand that there's a substantial investment that you're making, right? Is it just gut feeling that you go ahead with, or do you see a gap where you feel that, okay, this is something that I want to fill in, and I believe in this particular thing, and I'm going to invest whatever money I have in this?
I think I did not even know the value of money then. Like, I was 22 when I started my business. And for me, it was like, okay, had I gone to do my further education abroad, then it would have easily costed me about, I don't know, maybe 75 lakh to a crore if it was in Scotland or UK. So मुझे ऐसा था कि यार मुझे मतलब I didn't understand the worth of money. For me, it was like it's a tool. I'll put in, I'll get something. That's how I saw. I didn't see this so much as a transaction. I didn't see like, I had put a very small amount also. Like, I mean, it wasn't small back then, but now I think of it because I'm sorry, God. But it was like,
सब inflation की गलती है.
मतलब I had put 5 लाख रुपए, जो उस समय के लिए बहुत बड़ी बात थी. अभी भी है, but अब शायद क्योंकि now I'm running a business that's way more, it's doing a lot in traction, and I feel like sometimes I pay that in one go to a person, and इस पे मैंने अपना पूरा business खड़ा कर लिया था. मतलब वो difference है जहाँ पे उस value की बात है, लेकिन I never put too much attention on money then.
Tell me any crazy experience that you have had while you were running the show for this. You know, I'm sure you met a lot of people. You were part of a lot of things that you started there. Tell me a little bit about it.
I tell you about this one time when I had like when the hostel started, and then I thought like I was so naive. I was like, okay, now my hostel started. Now I'm going to get guests on like day one, which doesn't happen by the way. You have to have a lot of patience. So for 24 days, like there was no one, and my whole excitement and passion and like all of this was just going down. I was like, I was asking my business partner like, when are people going to come? And then this, I still remember the date, in fact. It was like, I think, 6 June. And that same day, this is the first time we are going to have a full house. That same day, 6 in the morning, it starts to pour in Manali. And there is water everywhere in my building, in the rooms, in the balcony. And I've woken up and it's freezing. And it's just me. And I was living there alone. My partner had left for Goa. And then there was this one guy who was bringing his group. So he had come one day before and he'd become my friend. So both of us are like, okay, bring out the wipers, and we're wiping the whole place and water is coming in. And that was that one moment when I realized that this is something I would have never learned in a business school. you know, This is something you learn on ground. If you want to run a business, you can't foresee the challenges at all. There will be so many things thrown at you, right? So I think there are so many stories that pushed me. It really pushed me to an extent where I started becoming okay with imperfect things.
Right.
Like being a topper, I was always obsessing over perfectionism. Like, okay, ये ऐसा होना चाहिए, ये ऐसा होना चाहिए. And I realized कि नहीं, अगर कुछ life में करना है, तो you have to accept the imperfections of what you're doing. And if you're waiting कि जब एकदम सही हो जाएगा ना, मतलब एकदम solid हो जाएगा, and then I will throw it out in the market, it will never have, you will never put it out because you will never be satisfied. So, yeah.
स्तुति, ना तो MBA की डिग्री थी, ना तो बिजनेस देखा हुआ था अपने पापा का बिजनेस डेफिनेटली देखा हुआ था. हाँ. तो खून में बिजनेस था, तो आपने सोचा कि लेट्स टेक दैट जंप and start something of my own. Do you think it's possible, it's scientific, it's doable in the times that we are living in today?
It's very erratic, actually. It's very erratic. I will not advise it. It's harmful for your life. Don't do that. But I think the other way around, how it worked out for me was, see, at the end, अगर आप MBA करोगे, आप वहाँ पे business को books में पढ़ोगे, और फिर आप जाके उसे अप्लाई करोगे और फिर आपको कुछ और ही सीखने को मिलेगा क्योंकि वो होगा रेलेवेंट.
हाँ, बिकॉज मॉप चलाना नहीं सिखाएंगे ना.
हाँ, बाइक पर कैसे पानी निकालना है, सुबह 6 बजे उठना पड़ेगा, ये तुम्हारे MBA स्कूल में नहीं सिखाते ना. लाइक व्हेन यू हैव टू गिव अ सर्विस, व्हेन यू हैव टू गिव योर कस्टमर एन एक्सपीरियंस, that's something I feel that you learn on ground when you're dealing with people. When you're not looking at customers as numbers in your books, when you're looking at customers as human beings. And even till date, when at Amrutam, whenever there is a problem, I feel that my biggest concern is that, see, today you resolved this. If a customer had a bad experience here, where there was a delayed delivery or there was a damage or whatever, this one time you resolved it. But what about the rest of the human beings who are going to be so excited to receive a parcel and then they're going to face this issue? So we need to solve this operationally. We need to solve it at the fundamentals rather than resolving at one-on-one. So I think my psychology degree actually helped me evolve my skill of empathy. That यार मुझे नहीं अच्छा लगेगा अगर किसी को बुरा लगे, bad experience होगा. It's not about the fancy words. बस मुझे नहीं अच्छा लगेगा कि किसी के पास अमृतम का पार्सल आया और उसे खुशी नहीं हुई. और वो कितना intangible चीज़ है. मतलब आप उसको कैसे measure करोगे? आप थोड़ी उसके बारे में सर्वे लोगे और scoring लोगे. But ये पता चलता है. मतलब if you work on the experience side of it, which is then again a lot to do with the subtle, intangible things that you do as a brand or a business. So that's something I learned from Lost Tribe. My Lost Tribe experience was MBA.
Do you think the businesses of today, as you mentioned, you learned empathy from the courses that you have done. Businesses of today actually focuses on empathy?
I feel like it comes with who is running that business. You know, at the end, people are buying from people, and especially in D2C era, you are buying from people, you know, who is selling it. And if that person is, you know, a loving, empathetic person, then that will reflect in every little aspect of a brand. So I can't generalize that it's non-existent or it is, but I would still say that a large percentage of people are still looking at it as a very mechanical thing. Like they're looking at it as a very कि मतलब पानी में H2O होता है तो तुमने 2 हाइड्रोजन और ऑक्सीजन रख दिया, but that's not water, right? Even though it's the same everything is there, but it's not water. That's the thing. I feel that if it's not processed from the person and then passed on to each and every member of your team, and then that reflects in how they do their part, which then translates to the experience that the customer has. I feel it's still a very, like a cool thing to say, oh, empathy or, you know, like customer experience. But, and some of people are working also, but it's still very much like कि अच्छा ठीक है WhatsApp पे notification जाएगा तो customer को कितना अच्छा लगेगा. It's that.
True. Okay, let's talk about Amrutam now. You know, when was the time that you thought that now is the time that I have to step in, right? And I have to take charge from my father for what he has built. And were you alone in this journey or you got a support from someone in the family?
I think life sort of pushed me like in a way that I never thought I'd go back to Gwalior. That's something that, I mean, I still remember how I used to tell my parents, like when I left at 17, that I'm never going to come back. But when I was in Manali and I was living and running Lost Tribe, there was, you know, I was basically hit by clinical depression. And I mean, there was a lot going on in my life, of course, like running a business, not knowing anything. And on top of that, I think that was the time when family was also not okay with the fact that I was living this erratic life in Himachal. Like, what are you doing? They didn't understand. And they were saying that, you know, come to Bangalore, just do a job or do something, prepare for civil services, classic. Because for them, it was like, बच्चा smart है, IAS बनना चाहिए. वो था उनका, मतलब that I'd give to them कि हमेशा like IAS बेटा try तो कर लो. So they convinced me that Bangalore आ जाओ. I came here in 2016. And I went, and I realized that, you know, I was in depression because of course, I've studied psychology, but there were aspects like, you know, when I did not want to get out of my bed. Like, you know, even till noon, I did not want to slip out of my bed. I just wanted to be in my bed. And I'm not that person. I knew it. I am that person who wants to wake up and feel energetic in my mornings. But there were a few things. So I thought, okay, why don't I take therapy? And I reached out to this person I knew. I went to meet him and I said, listen, please give me therapy. And he gave me a job. And I was like, I don't want a job, I want therapy. And he's like, listen, I think you just need to do something. You're here, you're feeling lost. Just, you know, and I guess he was just looking at me as someone who had started a business at 22.
Right.
And he was looking at me as someone who just probably कि हाँ ये busy हो जाएगी, ठीक हो जाएगी. जबकि I knew, भाई, this is beyond me, this is mental health concern. So I took up the job because it was like, okay, maybe he's right. So
You never know, right?
Yeah, you never know. And eventually I did sign up for therapy and I worked with them for like 5 months only to realize that भाई मेरे से नहीं हो पाएगा, नौकरी नहीं हो पाएगी. I am born to be a leader.
Born entrepreneur.
Entrepreneur भी नहीं यार, बोलना भी नहीं आता था वो तो तब.
अच्छा, business खून में है, चलो.
मतलब मुझे नहीं, ऐसा भी नहीं है. मैं जब साइकोलॉजी पढ़ रही थी तो सोचती थी कि इंडिपेंडेंट प्रैक्टिस कर लूँगी.
Okay.
ऐसा नहीं है कि बिजनेस है, बस खुद का कुछ करना है. वो हमेशा से रहा है मेरे अंदर कि आई डोंट वांट टू बी आंसरेबल टू समवन एल्स. I want to have my own autonomy when I do things. And that was like, taking up that job was like a big thappa to what I believed in कि भाई नहीं हो पाएगा, ये मेरे लिए बहुत difficult है. This is not the environment I can grow in. When I have to take a approval for every email, every message that's sent out, every meeting, and उसमें क्या हो, मुझसे नहीं हो सकता ये. वो personality का problem, मतलब मेरा वो temperament ऐसा है, ठीक है.
Right.
तो Anyway, so then when I was doing that and when I was working on their visibility, they hired me. My designation was called psychologist business design. एंड आई वाज लाइक यार इनकी विजिबिलिटी पे काम कर रही हूँ तो फिर मैं अपने घर के बिजनेस की विजिबिलिटी पे काम कर लेती हूँ. सो आई स्टार्टेड स्टडिंग. मतलब ये बहुत ऐसे ऑर्गेनिक था कि यार ये सब तो फिर मैं आई कैन डू फॉर अमृतम. सो अमृतम वॉज एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड बाय माई पेरेंट्स इन 2006 and we were a manufacturing company. We were making products which were designed by my father. Like he's very passionate about Ayurveda, so he came up with really good formulations. But he was not in the right market. He was still going through that distribution channel.
ये आपको कब realize हुआ that he was not in the right market?
जब मैं मतलब ये तो मुझे
पता ही था.
इंस्टिंक्ट था वो कि ही इज़ पैशनेट अबाउट द प्रोडक्ट. ठीक है, आप ये बहुत दिल से बना रहे हो आप ये बॉटल. ठीक है, जिससे बेचने जा रहे हो वो बस ये बोल रहा है कि मार्जिन कितना दोगे. उसको आपके बेनिफिट्स और फीचर से मतलब ही नहीं है. उसको सिर्फ आपके मार्जिन से मतलब है. तो वो बहुत डिसोनेंस था वहाँ पे कि भाई माई फादर वॉज पुटिंग सो मच इन टू बिल्डिंग दीज प्रोडक्ट्स, बट जिसको बेच रहे हैं उसको सिर्फ अपना अच्छा मेरे को इतना कट मिलेगा, रिटेलर को स्टॉकिस्ट को इतना मिलेगा, रिटेलर को इतना मिलेगा, डॉक्टर इतने प्रिस्क्राइब करेगा तो मेडिकल स्टोर पे पेशेंट इतना लेगा. सो वो हमारा वैसा सप्लाई चेन था कि डॉक्टर्स यूज टू प्रिस्क्राइब अमृतम प्रोडक्ट्स बिकॉज वी कम अंडर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ आयुष एंड आवर प्रोडक्ट्स आर आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन. लाइक इवन आर शैम्पू सेज आयुर्वेदिक मेडिसिन. सो वो मुझे और मेरे भाई को दोनों को ये पता था कि यार मतलब यू नो ही इज़ नॉट इन द राइट स्पेस. द प्रोडक्ट्स दैट ही इज़ मेकिंग, there is a different audience who will value this. So that was always there. When this happened, when I realized कि यार मतलब I can work on my father's visibility, that was around the same time when my brother also decided that okay, you know, we should go back home because they are struggling with so much. And then we were like, okay, you know, there are certain strengths that you have, there are certain things that I am good at, let's combine that. So we went back home and बहुत सिंपल मतलब like 2017 when I went and I did not have any work obviously because there was nothing to do like in that sense. So like our mother just said one thing that you show up at this time, you sit and you leave at this time and you only do whatever you can do in that time which is not unproductive. So that was the only thing. So when you do that as a discipline कि आप एक जगह पे बैठ रहे हो, डेली बैठ रहे हो तो कुछ तो करोगे ना. आप स्टार्टिंग में टेड टॉक सुना, जोश टॉक सुना, सारे टॉक सुने, फिर थोड़ा आया कि अच्छा ठीक है यार लोग बहुत डिफिकल्टी से गुजरते हैं. देन देर आर वेज टू ओवरकम. हाउ डू दे ओवरकम? सो देन वी हायर्ड अ डिज़ाइन पर्सन बिकॉज वी वर लाइक ठीक है. बहुत जो पैकेजिंग थी वो बहुत दवाई वाली थी अमृतम की. यू नो लाइक
दवाई वाली पैकेजिंग का क्या मतलब है?
दिखता था कि ये डॉक्टर ने प्रिस्क्राइब किया वाला जो होता है ना, लाइक द कस्टमर डजंट केयर कि क्या है, कैसी फॉन्ट है, क्या मतलब.
तो उसको थोड़ा स्टाइलिश बनाना था.
हाँ मतलब था कि यार जो बंदा इस फॉर्मुलेशन को वैल्यू करेगा ना वो सबसे पहले किस वजह से खरीदेगा. बहुत बेसिक है ये. मतलब बहुत मतलब मुझे लगता है कि उस टाइम पे हमको ये मालूम होना बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट था क्योंकि अगर हम वही प्रोडक्ट्स बेचने लग जाते तो फिर वी वुड हैव गॉन इनटू द सेम ट्रैजेक्टरी ऑफ कि पेमेंट्स लाने हैं और B2B में पेमेंट्स कलेक्ट करने के लिए दिक्कत हो रही है. देयर आर डिफॉल्टर्स, पीपल आर रिटर्निंग बैक आवर प्रोडक्ट्स और ये सब चल रहा है जो चल रहा था. बोथ माई ब्रदर एंड आई एसेंशियली वी बोथ लव डिज़ाइन एंड वी बोथ लव हाउ थिंग्स यू नो जस्ट it should feel good when you look at something. That's something that both of us like. And we both hired a designer who was also like starting off and we worked with her. हमने लोगो बनवाया पहले. तो मम्मी पापा बोल रहे हैं कि 3 महीने से ये लोग सिर्फ लोगो बना रहे हैं. ये क्या करने वाला है, लाइक यू नो लाइक दिस इज हाउ स्लो आर दे. So that was happening and then packaging took its time and I think सबसे ज़्यादा जो मेरी sorry to say फटी थी वो था जब लेबल बन गया, बॉटल आ गई, लग गया लेबल. अब क्या करें, अब इसको बेचते कैसे हैं. मतलब
3 महीने लोगों में तो लगा दिया, अभी फिर लोगों तक कैसे पहुंचाए.
Very nice, yeah. Probably that's what our parents are thinking. ठीक है. I was actually thinking कि यार इतने टाइम से लगे हुए हैं लोगो और लेबल और फॉन्ट स्टाइल और कलर्स और बॉटल्स और ये ऐसे दिखना चाहिए, सब कुछ चल रहा है और मेक शिफ्ट खुद से हमने. और मैंने ना प्रोसेस में वो इलस्ट्रेटर जो मतलब द डिज़ाइनर, आई लर्नड इलस्ट्रेटर फ्रॉम हर क्योंकि मेरे को था कि यार मुझे आगे लेबल्स बनाने हैं, तो मेरे को किसी को समझाने के लिए मेरे को आई डोंट वांट टू डील विद इट, आई लर्न, आई डू इट, एंड टिल डेट इफ वी लॉन्च अ न्यू प्रोडक्ट आई मेक द लेबल्स, क्योंकि अब मुझे लगता है वो क्विक है ना. तो आर पेरेंट्स एक्चुअली थॉट ये लोग टाइम पास कर रहे हैं, बट देन इवेंचुअली व्हेन आई थिंक जब सब कुछ रेडी हो गया, देन आई फ्रीक्ड आउट एंड आई वाज लाइक लिसन, आई नीड टू गो. सो आई वेंट टू लद्दाख, आई डिड माई विपश्यना कोर्स. 10 दिन मैं मौन रही, चुप रही. मैंने सोचा कि ओके, लाइक व्हाट डू आई डू नाउ, यू नो, लाइक आई डिडंट थिंक दैट दिस वाज द हार्डेस्ट पार्ट. आई एक्चुअली डिड नॉट थिंक दैट सेलिंग वाज सच अ डिफिकल्ट टास्क, क्योंकि मैंने उस बारे में सोचा ही नहीं था. बट वंस द प्रोडक्ट गॉट रेडी, and then my brother and I, we were like, and he is super future oriented, like usko matlab he has the vision for future, like he can tell कि यार ये ना अब एक point का redundant हो जाएगा, irrelevant हो जाएगा, and that's how we take decisions also in Amrutam, and that's his strength, which where he brings in the growth and the future mindset. So he said, you know, 2017 में D2C word भी coin नहीं हुआ था, ठीक है, and he said नहीं हम अपनी website पे बेचेंगे. और मैं उसे डेली पूछती थी ऑफिस में जाके कि पर लोग वेबसाइट पे आएंगे क्यों?
करेक्ट.
You know, like why would people come when there is Amazon and there's whatever, like Flipkart was pretty relevant at that time. अब तो ऐसे ही जैसा भी हो गया है. तो हाँ, मतलब my question to him was, why do we want to sell on our website? And he said customer data. And I used to like be like, क्या करना है data का, you know? And if you think about it, had he not thought of that then, today, when ads have become so expensive, marketplaces have become so crowded with so many brands, we know about every touch point of our customer, in the sense we know what they are interested in. So if a person is interested in our women health product, we don't want to spam them with our hair care. Now we are able to personalize the marketing for them, because back then in 2017 he said, नहीं हम अपनी website पर ही बेचेंगे. And we grew, and very recently, in fact, we listed ourselves on, like a few months ago, we listed ourselves on different marketplaces. And now, because we know we are recognized as a brand, like we know that people, when they say, they think of Amrutam, they don't just think of a product company, they think of a Ayurvedic lifestyle, they think about wellness community, they think about educational content, e-books, so much, like, you know, so much that we offer without a fee. Like the previous speaker who came here and said that know what not to do, I agree with that, but I also feel, how would you, unless you
Correct.
do it?
Absolutely.
You have to do so many things only to declutter and say कि यार ये 10 चीज़ें काम करती हैं और ये 20 चीज़ें हटा दो. But you have to fail quick, ना, do quick, fail quick, and D2C allows you that. हमने 140 SKUs निकाल लिए, फिर realize किया यार ये top 10 products से ही main revenue आती है. But we could only tell that because we launched 140 SKUs in 5 years. We started with 10 products. I might sound a little philosophical, but something that is success at one point is later like a very normal reality for you. Like I remember जब हम लोगो बना रहे थे तो हमारे माँ बाप बोलते थे कि यार तुम लोग बस ना 5 लाख रुपीज़ a month ले आओ, हम तो समझ लेंगे तुमने बहुत अच्छा बिजनेस क्रिएट कर लिया.